Hello everyone, and today we are back for another episode of the PvPer series. We are in episode 5, and we're going to be talking about the global stat buffs. So, JamiyJamie did 2 live streams where he talked about all the stat buffs for each Lumian, and he set up a full-on spreadsheet for every single stat buff for every single Lumian. So with that out of the way, let's head right into the video. Before we get started, I'm actually going to leave a link in the description below for the global stat sheet, so anyone can see this at any time. So the link to this site is going to be in the description below if y'all are curious about the global stat buffs to every Lumian yourself. So we're going to start with Serenite, and all the starters have an increased base stat total of 15. So their old base stats were 610, the new is 625. So every starter has gained 15 base stats. So yeah, we're going to start with Serenite, where it actually gains an HP boost of 1, a ranged attack stat of 11, and a ranged defense increase of 3. So not a massive buff for Serenite, but still. Now there's the opportunity to run a mixed Serenite, so that's kind of fun. And it gets a little bit more ranged defense, which could definitely save it. Now we're going to go into Luminami, and Luminami gets a 3 health increase, 4 melee attack increase, 2 melee defense, 4 range, and 2 range defense. This is an overall very good buff for Luminami. It's going to make Luminami even tougher to KO, and I like this. I like this one, and the Serenite, I like these buffs as well. Now we're going to get into the Tatub, and it gains a health boost of 3 and a range attack stat of 12. So, range Tatub's actually going to be a little bit more dangerous, but it's not going to affect the meta Tatub that much. So, but yeah, you can run a range attacking one, and it'll be more viable. Now we're going to head into Valkyrie. Valkyrie gain a health stat of 2, a melee attack stat of 7, and defense stats on both sides of 3. So, it's a little bulkier, and it can use its melee attack a little better, but nothing else more than that. It's just a little bit bulkier. With Vesperatu, it gets a melee defense stat of 7 and a ranged attack increase of 8. So, again, mixed Vesperatu could definitely be something that could be dangerous. Now we got Himber, and wow, Himber got a pretty good buff. 8 health increase for Himber. That's really good for it. It does get a range attack stat buff as well, but that's not going to be as useful compared to the 8 health. So it has 132 base health. Oh my goodness. And then you got Zulong, who gains 3 melee attack, 4 melee defense, 3 ranged attack, and 5 ranged defense. It actually has a decent range defense stat. That actually is kind of crazy. But yeah, it gains a little more attack. Now we're going to go into Umbra, and Umbra gains 9 energy, 10 melee attack, 11 melee defense, 10 ranged attack, and 10 ranged defense. Umbra has some surprisingly good bulk now, and it hits harder. This is a huge stat buff. That's a stat buff of 50. It originally had 525 base stats. Now it's 575. So Umbra getting a massive buff. Now we're into Luxor, and just like Umbra, Luxor's getting a massive buff as well. It's gained 9 energy, 10 melee attack, 5 melee defense, 10 ranged attack, 6 ranged defense, and 10 speed. Luxor now has 101 speed. That's a huge buff for Luxor because Luxor is actually kind of frail, so that's very good for it. And now we got Eclipse, and Eclipse is going to be a little controversial because there's going to be a lot of new moves that JamiyJamie's going to add to Eclipse. So Eclipse got nerfed in a lot of areas. It lost 7 speed. It lost 8 range defense. It lost 10 health. But it does gain 4 energy, it does gain a little melee defense, and it gained 55 melee attack. So now, Eclipse is a mixed attack. And I know what y'all are thinking. Eclipse doesn't have any good melee moves. This is a huge nuke to Eclipse. Wow! Some of the moves that JamiyJamie wants to add to Eclipse is Broad Boost, Drudge, Range Drudge, and Magnify. He's also going to add Radiant Rush and Mega Chop. Yeah, Eclipse is going to be pretty dangerous. So, yeah, the stat buffs make sense. I can understand why he nerfed the speed, nerfed the range defense, and buffed the melee attack if he wanted to make it mix. I don't know, I'm kind of questionable about that one still, but still. Eclipse is going to be a completely new Lumian after the global stat buffs. Now, we're into Cinemoth, and oh my gosh, look at Cinemoth. So its old base stats are 495, one of the lowest base stats for a fully evolved Lumian. It now has 575. And look at the buff Cinemoth has. 10 health, 10 melee attack, 30 melee defense, 6 ranged attack, 19 ranged defense, and 5 speed. It actually has a viable speed stat now, and it's not frail. Oh my gosh, that's a huge buff. Cinemoth doesn't die in one hit anymore. That is huge for Cinemoth. I still don't think it's going to be that good, but hey. Cinemoth's going to accept anything at this rate. You can definitely run a defensive Cinemoth now, and it can definitely be very helpful. We got Sumo Beetle, but Sumo Beetle gains 15 health, which puts it up to 87. That's not cheat. We have 15 melee defense, 30 ranged attack, 15 ranged defense, and 5 speed. It's actually a little faster now, too. So, that's pretty good for Sumo Beetle. I don't think it's going to help it too much, but hey, it's something for it. And we got Avatros. So, Avatros gained 20 base stats, has 5 energy, 10 melee defense, and 5 ranged attack. Nothing really new for Avatros, just a little more energy. That's going to help it, and a little more melee defense, and that's kind of it. Now, we're into Swolder, and Swolder has a huge buff as well. Its old base stats is 495, now it's 575. It's gained 15 energy, that's huge for Swolder. 5 melee attack, so it actually hits pretty hard on the melee attack now. It's a good melee defense tank, because it gained 20 melee defense. And you can use its ranged attack, so 40 ranged attack, why not? So yeah, Swolder getting a pretty nice buff there. Florent has 97 added stats. 20 in the health, 20 in the energy, 10 in the melee attack, 15 in the melee defense, 17 in the ranged attack, and 15 in the ranged defense. Oh my goodness, Florent is actually bulkier now. That is very good for Florent. And the Soul Burst version gets 5 health, 8 energy, 12 melee defense, 12 ranged defense, and plus 30 ranged attack. Now, we're into Terrafly, and Terrafly really needed the buffs. I consider Terrafly a bottom 5 Lumian in all of Lumian Legacy, so this is huge for Terrafly. It gained a 23 speed. It actually has a speed stat. Let's go! It also got 15 ranged attack, 7 melee defense, 15 melee attack, so it hits harder now, 15 energy, and 5 health. Huge buff for Terrafly, it needed it. Terraclaw got 15 health, 15 energy, and 10 melee defense, while also having 60 ranged attack, so that life drain Terraclaw is actually going to do a little more damage now. We got Ragoon. Ragoon just gained stats across the board. It gained a little bit of stats in everything besides the speed. It gained 5 in the health, 5 in the energy, 5 in the melee attack, 10 in the melee defense, 20 in the range attack, and 5 in the range defense. So that's a good little buff for Ragoon. Now we got Borac. Wow, Borac got buffed. The defensive resilience Borac is going to be very good now. 10 in the health, 5 in the energy, 5 in the melee defense, 9 in the range attack, and 10 in the ranged defense. So yeah, Borac being a little bulkier. That's huge for it. Now we got Eliguana. Eliguana didn't get a huge buff. It only got a base stat increase of 15. But it got 10 in the ranged attack. That is pretty big. And a little bit of melee attack, because, you know, why not? So, yeah. But the 10 extra ranged attack is going to be very helpful for it. Now we're into Gastroke and Soul Burst Gastroke. Normal Gastroke has gained 33 base stats, 5 in the health, 5 in the energy, 5 in the melee attack, 5 in the melee defense, 8 in the ranged attack, and 5 in the ranged defense. While Soul Burst Gastroke probably has the lowest increase out of every Lumian on the list, it only just gained 2 ranged attack. Because why not? Yeah, just 2 ranged attack, why not? Now we have Wiki Wiki. Wiki Wiki got a defense increase, so 15 melee defense, 15 ranged defense, and 13 ranged attack. So, it's a little better. It's still probably going to be the worst Lumian in Lumian Legacy, but hey, the extra defense is nice. Got Chartiki. Chartiki gains 10 health, 34 melee attack, and 9 ranged attack, but it does lose 10 energy. That's a massive blow to Chartiki. Losing 10 energy is a massive blow for Chartiki, so that's going to hurt. That's kind of a nerf for Chartiki. We got Waka Laka, who gained 5 health, 5 energy. Yeah, it needed some extra energy, so that's good. 26 melee attack, and 7 ranged defense. So, Waka Laka not getting buffed too much. That's kind of sad for that. As for Sachi, Sachi gains a little bit of ranged attack and a little bit more defense. Yes, it actually needed the extra melee defense because it's so frail on that melee side. So that's big for it. And it got a little better ranged defense as well. Still only 525 base stats though. Like, oh my goodness. That might be the lowest out of all the improved Lumians. But it is a single evolution form, so that makes sense. Now we got Cinemars. So Cinemars, 3 melee attack, 10 melee defense, 5 ranged attack, and 5 ranged defense. Just good overall buffs across the board for Cinemars. Now we got Ventation. Ventation gained 5 energy, 5 melee attack, 15 ranged attack, and 5 ranged defense. So Ventation could actually hit harder with Geyser now. That's huge for it, because it was kind of a sitting duck when using its ranged attack before. So now, it actually hits a little harder. That's big for it. Now we got Ursul. Ursul gained 5 melee attack, 5 melee defense, 20 ranged attack, and 10 ranged defense. So that's a good little buff for Ursul. The 20 ranged attack's not going to matter too much, but everything else is pretty helpful. Now, we got Ursnack. Ursnack actually gained a little melee attack. That's huge for it. 5 melee defense, and 29 ranged attack. So its melee bulk is going to be even better than before, but not too much of a buff for Ursnack. We got Revenine, who gained 5 health, 15 melee attack, and a little bit of extra bulk on both sides. Melee Revenine is actually kind of viable now. You can actually use a melee Revenine with Fadeaway now. That is huge for Revenine, because now it adds a little bit more unpredictability with the Vengeance set. So you can actually hit on both sides now. So that is actually a pretty good buff by Revenine, even though it's not buffing its ranged attack. Now we got Eruptodon. Eruptodon just has 20 base stats added. 5 in the melee attack, 5 in the range attack, 5 in the melee defense, and 5 in the range defense. Just a little bit overall better bulk. The Soulburst form only got 10 base stats. It got 5 in the melee attack and 5 in the range defense. Nothing else to say there. Soulburst Eruptodon is OP. It didn't need that much more. Now we get Craola. Craola got 43 base stats. That is a huge increase for it. Got 10 in the health, 13 in the melee attack, 5 in the melee defense, 10 in the ranged attack, and 5 in the ranged defense. So Craola being a nice overall tank. That's huge for it. As for Soul Burst, it actually loses 2 melee attack, but it gains 5 melee defense, 5 ranged attack, and 5 ranged defense. So Soul Burst Craola is going to be a little better. That's huge for it. Now we got Vocaloa. Vocaloa gains 4 energy, 5 melee attack, and 34 ranged attack. So Vocaloa didn't get that much extra stat buffs, unfortunately. So that kind of sucks for Vocaloa. We got Fesner, who gained 5 health, 11 energy. That's huge for it. 15 melee defense, 2 ranged attack, and 10 ranged defense. Fesner got buffed. That's a huge buff for Fesner. Now we got Obsidian, who gains 10 melee attack and 5 ranged attack. That's pretty good, actually, because now Obsidian's Primal Slash is going to do a little more damage now. So that's good for Obsidian. That's a good little buff for it. We got Trumbull, who gained 4 energy, 10 ranged attack, and 6 ranged defense. Nothing new to Trumbull, but it gets a little more energy now. Same with Mewtwo, it gets a little more energy, but it also gains 10 melee attack and 6 melee defense. So not that much extra for the cows, but hey, they get a little extra energy, so that's good. Now we got Gobademic. Gobademic just gained 20 in the melee attack and 5 in the range attack. Nothing really special here for Gobademic, unfortunately. That is kind of a bummer. Now we got Icicle. Icicle just gained 25 range attack, and so did Soulburst Icicle. So the Icicles are pretty much unchanged. Hey, but the Bag of Tricks Icicles are going to be a little better, so that's something. Now we got Ferroglyph, who gained 5 in the energy, 5 in the melee attack, and 5 in the melee defense. That's gonna be okay. That's okay. Not the best. The 5 of its base stats are kind of useless, but the other 10 are okay. Garbanis? Wow! Garbanis with a massive buff. Look at this buff on Garbanis. Not only does it gain 2 health, it gains 20 melee attack and 25 melee defense with 10 range defense. Wow! So Garbanis probably being the best buff so far. It's gonna be so much better now. Because when you combine that melee defense with Trash Armor and Battering Ram, it makes Garbanis hit so hard. So that's a huge buff for Garbanis. Now we got Stratosaur. Stratosaur gains some HP and melee attack, and that's kind of it. It does gain a little health, though. Same as Soulburst Stratosaur, it gains a little bit of health and melee attack. Now we got Diborg. Diborg just got consistent stats across the board. 5 in the health, 5 in the melee attack, 5 in the melee defense, 5 in the ranged attack, and 5 in the ranged defense. Now we got Tyrex, who has 5 in the energy and 10 in the ranged attack. So unfortunately, Tyrex did not get buffed that much. So that's really sad for Tyrex. We got Munchwheel, and Munchwheel got a solid buff. Got 5 in the health and 10 in the melee attack. That's pretty good for Munchwheel. And it gained a little ranged attack, but it's never going to use it. We got Gardrone. Yeah, Gardrone didn't get buffed too much. 5 in the health and 5 in the melee defense. So yeah, Gardrone's still kind of trash, unfortunately. We got Hunter, who gained 20 range defense. So now, I guess Zip Zap's now viable now. So that's cool. You can actually run Pivot now on a Hunter if you want. You got Arpaigo that gained 10 melee defense and 10 range defense with 5 range attack. That's a nice little buff for Arpaigo. I like that. Now we get the Fossils and Skellic, who gains a little bit of ranged attack and ranged defense. So unfortunately, Skellic is going to be kind of the same as it was before. Joltube, only 20 in the range attack. Nah, nothing special there. And Fernix getting a nice buff, though. 5 in the health, 5 in the energy, 5 in the melee defense, and 10 in the range defense. It's going to be even bulkier on the range side. So that's a huge little buff for Infernix. Now we got Dorgo. And Dorgo's going to gain 5 energy, 1 melee attack, and 9 ranged attack. So that's a nice little buff for Dorgo. I like that. I like that a lot. And now we got Mulber. Oh, yes. This is more like it. It gets increased in every stat besides speed. So it has 119 health now with the 10 health increase, 5 energy, 5 melee attack, 5 melee defense, 5 ranged attack, and 5 ranged defense. It pretty much has balanced stats across the board now. That's huge for Mulber. That's a huge little buff. We got Metatoad, who gains a little bit of defense and some health. So Metatoad's even bulkier than it was before. Huge buff for Blowtox. It actually gains 20 melee attack. That is awesome. That is a huge buff for Blowtox. That's massive. So now Blowtox actually has some viability. As for Barblast, though, Barblast gains some energy, a little bit more melee attack, it's a little bit of melee defense, but it does lose 5 range defense, so it won't be as range bulky as it was before. Now we got Garlash. Garlash gains a little melee defense and a little bit of ranged attack, so Garlash isn't going to be that much different, unfortunately. So that's kind of an L on Garlash. Now we got Deludrix. Deludrix got a pretty nice buff, 5 in the energy, 5 in the melee attack, 5 in the melee defense, and 5 in the range defense. You can actually run a mixed Deludrix a little bit better now, so that's pretty good for Deludrix. That's a nice little buff. Colossotrops, that's an L. Only 15 ranged attack. Sorry, Colossotrops. You're going to have to be held back. Now we got Hoganosh. Hoganosh gains 10 in the health, 5 in the melee defense, 15 in the range attack, and 10 in the range defense. So that's a nice little buff for Hoganosh. It needed it big time. Now we're going to go into Mocho. I hope you guys can see that. I'll make sure y'all see it. It gets 35 melee attack. Well, at least you can use melee attacks now. You can utilize Hop Kick Flinch. Now we got Spreezy, who gains 10 in the health, 5 in the melee attack, 10 in the melee defense, and 15 in the range attack. Oh man, that's a nice little buff for Spreezy. Spreezy needed that big time. Now, we're going on to Whippledrift. Whippledrift gained 5 in the health, 5 in the melee defense, and 10 in the range attack. Nice little buff for Whippledrift. That's huge for it. And now it has over 600 base stats, which is awesome. Servalin just gained some health, but hey, it's going to make Servalin a little bit bulkier, so that's nice. We got Windolin. Windolin just gained a little bit of melee defense and ranged attack. So, I guess it can use its ranged attacking version a little better, so that's something. Kierlin just gained some ranged defense, nothing special there. Zeppelin gains a little bit of melee attack and a little bit of ranged defense, so hey, it's not frail on the range side as much anymore, so that's kind of a dub. We got Benelin, who gains 5 melee attack and 5 melee defense, so again, just like with Zeppelin, it's not that bad on the melee side now, so that's pretty good for Benelin. Not great, but something. Wrestlin. Oh, okay, so Wrestlin's getting nuked. Wow, Wrestlin's getting nuked. I'm actually okay with this. And the reason why I am okay with this is because Wrestlin just recently got Rogue Assault. So it losing 10 melee attack, I think, is okay. But it does gain 20 ranged attack. So, hey, Boom Bash Wrestling is now the meta. Buzzlin, I don't know what it gained. Yeah, it gained 10 ranged defense. That's very rough for Buzzlin. So, yep, Buzzlin didn't really get buffed. Tudrolin gains a little bit of ranged attack. So, yeah, I can use its ranged attacks now. So, that's kind of cool. Pyrolin. Ooh, Pyrolin's going to gain some health back. But it does lose 5 energy. I'm actually okay with this. It's 10 melee attack, doesn't matter, but I'm actually okay with it getting a little bit of HP back, but losing energy. That's so it doesn't spam Rejuvenate as much. Hydralin, oh my gosh, they're just gonna keep Hydralin mid. Now this is an L. Only 10 melee defense? That's just a massive slap in the face. Well, I guess Hydralin is still gonna be a bottom 3 Lumian. Now we got Oxydrake. Oxydrake gained 23 ranged attack. Oh, that's Harve. Yeah, 25 ranged attack. So yeah, same thing as Harve. They only got increased to their ranged attack. So kind of rough for them, but hey, I guess they can use ranged attacks now, so that's something. We got Wigtrex, who gains 5 health and 5 melee attack, so it's a little bulkier than before. We got Snagoop. Snagoop gained 10 melee attack, 5 melee defense, and 5 ranged defense. So it gets a little bulkier, but that's kind of it. That's definitely going to help the pre-evolve more, but I don't know how much of the stat buff Snagulp is getting, so I'm not sure about that one yet. Now we got Surkame. Surkame gains 15 energy, 10 melee attack, and 5 ranged attack. Pretty good buff. The 15 energy is going to help Surkame a lot. Now we got Bonfino. Bonfino is going to gain 5 melee attack, 5 melee defense, 5 ranged attack, and 5 ranged defense. So, nice overall buff for Bonfino. Now we got Cannabo. Cannabo gets 30 ranged attack. I mean, I had 9 ranged defense. We needed to min-max that. So yeah, that makes sense. I'm okay with that. Cannabo's still pretty good. Now we got Samarin. Samarin gains 10 in the melee defense, 25 in the ranged attack, and 5 in the ranged defense. It actually is a little bulkier now. Wow, the bulky Samarin gets a huge dub here. Now we get Lumelo. Lumelo gains a lot of defense. Whoa! So 5 in the health, 20 in the melee defense, and 15 in the ranged defense. Huge buff for Lumelo. It also gains a little bit of ranged attack, but who cares? It's not going to use ranged attacks. Now we're into Jalusa. Jalusa gains 40 melee attack. Oh, Jalusa got nuked. Wow, it actually loses 10 range defense. Wow, that's huge. You know what? I don't care. I'm happy with the Jalusa nerf. It's a little too overpowered anyway. Plus, I can never use it right. So if other people can't use it right, it's a huge dub for me. I know some people are not going to like it, but hey, it's kind of how it is. So yeah, Jalusa just got nuked. We got Terrashino, who just gained 30 range attack. You know, nothing new there. That's fine. I mean, you know, it's going to be the same as it was before. Lyricat got a nice buff, though. It gained a little bit of melee defense, a little bit of range defense, and a little bit of ranged attack. Again, you know, the melee attack doesn't matter too much, but hey, it's good that that's a nice number, so that's good. Booneri's literally unchanged. That makes sense because, you know, Booneri becomes the opposing Lumian, so I'm fine with Booneri's stats not changing. It would have been nice if they're all at 69, though. Cleone is up next, and Cleone only got 30 melee attack, so yeah, Cleone is going to be the same as it was before. Sanogar with a nice buff, though. Look at that buff by Sanogar. It actually gains a little bit of melee defense. That's really good for it. And it got a little bit more ranged attack and ranged defense. The 20 melee attack doesn't matter too much, but hey, it gets some nice defense buffs, so that's good for it. Sorelli, 5 in the health, 5 in the melee attack, 5 in the melee defense, 5 in the range attack, and 5 in the range defense. So that's a nice little buff for Sorelli. It's still going to be kind of overpowered, though, because of that Appetite ability. I hope they nerf Appetite to give a minus stat boost, as well as 2 positive ones. So that's what I hope happens with, you know, Appetite. Now, we got Fishkarna. Fishkarna gains 10 health, so that's good for it. Melee attack's not going to matter, but the 10 health's going to be helpful for it. It's going to make it bulkier on the range and melee defense side. Now we got Baneki. Baneki gained some more melee attack, so it can actually use the Brawn Boost version a little better, and it gained some ranged attack too, so that's a nice buff for Baneki, and it got some health and melee defense. Now we got Seadrake. Seadrake gained some health, energy, and ranged attack. That is some nice buffs there. You can actually use the mixed Seadrake now. Now we got Helvantic. Helvantic has 25 ranged attack, so yeah, its stats were min-max, so that makes sense. Helvantic's just going to be the same as it was before. As for Imperior, Imperior's going to gain melee attack, a little bit of melee defense, and a little bit of range defense, which that's kind of an L, because, you know, with Resentful, you kind of wanted to die to use your Resentful, but the melee attack's going to be helpful. You can actually use Fade Away a little bit better now, so that's good. As for Holly Bunch, yeah, that's kind of an L. Sorry about that, Holly Bunch, that's a kind of an L. Now we go into Barbadger. Barbadger gains 5 health, 5 melee defense, 15 ranged attack, and 5 ranged defense. So, nice little buff there for Barbadger. Doesn't get any attack, but its bulk is a little bit better. Now we go into Dragodyne. And Dragodyne just gains 15 melee attack. So, I guess it can use melee attacks now. So that's kind of cool, but nothing else really changed with Dragodyne. Tyranix got nuked. It's gonna get nuked because it's gonna lose Spike and Prismatic and Lightspeed Ray, and it gets a bad staff up. Wow, Tyranix is being put in the grave. Wow. JamiyJamie's really putting Tyranix in the grave. This might be a little overkill, but hey, it's fine. It's Tyranix. I don't want to see any more of those anymore, even though I've dealt with Tyranix really well as of late. Now, Baloforge, oh, that's good for it. It gains a little bit of range defense. It needed that big time. And it gains some more attack on both sides, so it's even better as a mixed attacker. Now we go to the Sherbot, the Iron Fumble. It gains a little bit of melee attack and some range defense. Nothing special, but hey, its range defense isn't terrible now. Now we got Lumala. I kind of forgot that Lumala existed, not gonna lie. And I think the 15 melee attack is gonna make it continue to be forgotten, because my goodness, that is a massive L for Lumala, because it's already kind of mid, so I guess it's gonna continue to be mid, unfortunately. As for Weasland, Weasland gained a little bit of bulk and some ranged attack, so that's good for it. It gained a little bulk. Morel gained some melee attack and some range defense, so it's a little bulkier on the range side, so that's nice. I like the bulk there. As for Craptana's going to be the same. It makes sense. 9 ranged attack. Yeah, that needs to be mid-max, so yep, that makes sense. Terradistant, only ranged attack, that makes sense. So Terradistant's going to be the same. Pronsu gained a little bit of bulk, so that's good for it. Same as Shrimpaste, so that's a good little buff for both Pronsu and Shrimpaste. They get a little bit of extra bulk, but they do get mid-maxed into their weaker attack stats, though. So that is unfortunate, but hey, they get a little extra bulk. As for Dokamore, yeah, it gets mid-maxed, so you have 20 ranged attack, that makes sense. Wraith gains some melee defense, that's a huge dub. Now its melee defense isn't terrible now, which that's good. It can actually use its melee defense on not very effective moves, so that's a huge dub from Wraith. We got Thaumin. Thaumin got 7 energy, 26 melee attack, 5 melee defense, and 5 range defense, so that's a pretty nice buff for Thaumin. Now we got Lashant, who has 8 in the health, 4 in the energy, 5 in the melee defense, 21 in the range attack, and 5 in the range defense. And despite the min-maxing stats, that's a pretty good buff for Lashant. It's actually a lot bulkier now. That's pretty good for Lashant. Now we got Krampus, who only gets 15 range attack, so that's kind of an L. Shyenta? Hey, ranged attacking Shyenta might be something. I mean, it does have Flash and Flay. It could definitely use it now. That's pretty cool to see. But nothing else other than that. Parasol gains 10 ranged attack, so yeah, it gets min-max. Bywarn gained 5 defense on both sides. Landtorch gained 5 defense on both sides. That's not going to make that much of a difference, but still, it still gets a little better now. And then Rancidor gains a little bit of melee defense, which that helps it, but the melee attack does not help Rancidor too much. Now, we're at the final part of the video. We're going to be talking about the roamers. And the roamers base stats are going from 650 to 700. While the event roamers only go up to 675. So keep that in mind. As for Dusket gains 27 ranged attack and 23 ranged defense. Huge buff for Dusket, but it does kind of leave my tech Dusket in the dust, unfortunately. But hey, regular Dusket's going to be a lot better now, so that's good. We got a Kizune. The Kizune gets 15 melee attack, 10 ranged attack, 16 ranged defense, 4 health, and 5 energy. Massive buff for Ika. Ikazune, that's a huge buff for you. Now we're into Protogon, who's quite possibly the worst roamer in the game, I think, right now. So, Protogon, it gets 5 health, 10 energy, 15 melee attack, 5 melee defense, 10 ranged attack, and 5 ranged defense. So it hits a lot harder now. And when you combine that with the Analyze boost, Protogon might actually be a little better now. We go into Dakuda, or Dakuda. I call it Dakuda. I think it's Dakuda, and not Dakuda, I hope. So yeah, hopefully I'm saying its name correctly. So Dakuda, 5 health, 20 energy, 5 melee attack, 10 melee defense, 5 range attack, 5 range defense. Massive buff for Dakuda. Not only for Dakuda, massive buff for Soul Burst Dakuda as well. 5 in the health, 20 in the energy, 5 in the melee attack, 5 in the melee defense, 5 in the range attack, and 5 in the range defense. As for Mutagon, Mutagon gains 10 energy, 10 melee attack, 5 melee defense, 20 range attack. Wow, mixed Mutagon's going to be fun. And also 5 range defense. So that's a pretty good buff for Mutagon. Cephalops. Look at this, guys. Cephalops is going to be changed for the first time in 4 years. Let's go, guys. So it gains 10 health, 20 energy, 5 melee defense, 5 ranged defense, and 10 ranged attack. That's the first chain for Cephalops ever since it was added. And it actually is going to make it a lot better too. So that's a huge buff for Cephalops. As for Elephage, Elephage gets no stat changes. That's fine. It's a pre-evolve. It's okay. Phagenaut, on the other hand, though, 5 energy, 20 melee attack, 20 melee defense, and 5 range defense. Wow, Phagenaut's going to be one of the best melee tanks in the game, I think. That's a pretty good buff for it. Now we're into Arceros, or Arceros. Gains 5 health, 25 range attack, and 20 range defense, so a little bit bulkier on the range side. So it makes it a better overall tank. Same with Gladia, 5 health, 25 melee attack, 10 melee defense, and 10 range defense. Whoa! So Gladia's range defense. Wow, okay, this might put this in Ubers. Although, Chilling Passion is getting nerfed to 25%. So maybe not, but still, that range defense with that range defense for a Lumian with 111 speed, that might be a little too much. But hey, we'll let the meta play out for Gladia. As for Novadias, this is probably one of the hardest Lumians because it's so balanced. If you put stats in everything, it's gonna make it OP. And yeah, it's Novadias. It goes to 750. It goes 5 health, 25 energy, 5 melee attack, 5 melee defense, 5 range attack, and 5 range defense. So, massive buff for Novadias, making it just the most balanced Lumian in all of Lumian Legacy. 134 attack on both sides. How can you deal with that? Now we got Metronet, who gains 10 energy and 15 melee attack, so nothing really special there. Same with Soul Burst, 20 energy, 5 melee attack, so you know, kind of minor buffs for Metro. As for Wobbulas, 5 in the health, 10 in the energy, 5 in the melee defense, 5 in the range defense. That's a huge buff for Wobbulas. That's massive. That's awesome for it. Now we got Nimue, who gained a little melee attack and some health. Nothing really special there, but the 5 extra health is nice. As for Cosmiore, all the Cosmiore forms took a massive L. They all got 25 attacks to their lower stats. So all the Cosmiore forms have an L, unfortunately. As for Nevermare, I hope you guys can see. I'm just trying to make sure. It's kind of hard to scroll. I think, yeah, y'all can see that. So, 5 in the health, 20 in the range attack. So, gain a little bit of health. That's okay for it. We get Aklos, who gains 5 in the health, 5 in the melee defense, 10 in the range attack, and 5 in the range defense. So, Aklos gonna be even stronger than what it was before. And now we're into the Gargolem forms. The base form is actually decent now. Look at that. 5 in the energy, 5 in the melee attack, 5 in the melee defense, 5 in the ranged attack, and 5 in the ranged defense. So, Gargolem based is a little more balanced. I like that. Gargolem attack, 10 in the melee attack, 10 in the ranged attack, and 5 in the energy. Gargolem defense, 5 in the energy, 10 in the melee defense, and 10 in the ranged defense. So, Gargolem defense form's gonna be even better. That's huge for that. Gargolem speed, 5 in the energy, 5 in the melee attack, 5 in the range attack, and 10 in the speed. So, Gargolem speed is now gonna be 165 speed. That is fast. Basically, Gargolem speed is Lightning McQuaid. Now we have Celesting, who gains 10 in the melee attack, 5 in the melee defense, 5 in the range attack, and 5 in the range defense. So, they get some nice buffs into its defenses. We got Odiaga, who gains 10 in the health, 5 in the energy, and 10 in the melee attack. Pretty nice buff for Odiaga. And finally, the final Lumian we're going to be talking about, oh my gosh, is Mimas. 5 in the health, and 10 defenses on both sides, making it a little bit bulkier. And that's it. That's all the base stat buffs. The global stat buffs are done. There are some other stuff at the top of the page I do want to show y'all though, so let me see if I can find it. There it is, right here. Hope you guys can see. I'm going to move it to the right a little. So yeah, these are how the base stats are given. I'm not going to go into too depth into it. You can just read this to yourselves. But Jamie's also going to be removing a couple of moves. So, a couple Lumians are going to lose Barter and Bait. So, Elephage and Phagenaut, Cephalops, Fishkarna, Sorelli, Mocho, Totemochi, and Mocho, Ampule, Amphibian, Metatoad, and Pike and Skellic are all losing Barter. As for Bait, all the Gargolems, the Elephage, Phagenaut, and Kizune, we got Fishkarna, Terashino, Copling, Copperage, and Oxydrake. That's a massive L for doubles Copperage. Joltooth, Christmas Cradle, and Festifer, and Lachette. The Valentine's Fan Cub and Yursnack are losing Bait. That's huge for that. Kumbunga and Chartiki losing Bait. And Embit, Redburn, and Sear Knight are all losing Bait. And yeah, there's the buff with T-Eclipse from earlier. T-Eclipse will be getting moves like Bulk Up and Peace of Mind with the UMB update. Through the stat changes will come sometime later. So yeah, those are all of the global stat buffs. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me talking about the global stat buffs. I will leave JamiyJamie's channel in the description below if y'all are curious on what his mindset for these buffs are. And I will also leave the global stat buffs webpage in the description below. So I will leave the link into it so y'all can click this and y'all can see the base stats at any time. And this should be coming out by PvP 2.0. So expect all the changes to happen for PvP 2.0. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!